Imagine the following scenario. 3 blindfolded men, each of whom has never seen an elephant, are stood in front of one and told to touch it and say what it is. The first man reaches out and touches its trunk. Asked what is in front of him, he claims it's a snake. The second man touches a leg and concludes it's the trunk of a tree. Finally, the third man touches the elephant's sides and claims it is a wall. When the 3 men realize that their answers conflict, they try to reach a compromise. We don't know how the debate ended. A legend has it that they're still there to this day, try to find some bizarre middle ground between a snake, a tree and a wall. Have you ever tried to find some middle ground between 2 conflicting claims? For example, you might hear that cold showers are good for your health, but then someone else told you that steam baths will cure all your ills. At a loss, maybe you choose to have a lukewarm shower. However, this kind of thinking isn't grounded on a rational evaluation of both claims. It is a simple mediation between the two. Here's another example. If Alice says all ostriches can fly and Mark says that no ostriches can fly, it's obvious that they can both be right. If we look for the middle ground, we reach the conclusion that some ostriches can fly and some cannot. It is a compromise, but it is also wrong. Thankfully, it's easy for us to determine who's telling the truth in the case of ostriches. They can't. But it's not always that easy to find out which of 2 conflicting claims is true. This kind of reasoning is known as the false compromise fallacy. And by the way, if you want to know what a fallacy is, we explain the concept of a fallacy in this video. We fall for the false compromise fallacy when we have to choose between 2 opposing positions and opt for the middle ground. The problem with this line of thinking is that the middle ground is not always the most balanced, correct, or rational choice. For example, in the 1930s, cigarette companies used to advertise smoking as a way to lose weight, and even as a natural cure for sore throats. Today, on the other hand, doctors tell us that smoking is bad for our health and increases our risk of cancer, strokes, and heart attacks. If we look for a compromise between these 2 positions, would it make sense to say that smoking a cigarette every once in a while is good for our health? No, of course not. If it is so clear that this kind of reasoning is wrong, why do we fall for it so often? One reason is that we often try to please everyone. In the case of Alice and Mark debating the flying abilities of ostriches, we might want to reach a middle ground to put the argument to rest. Sometimes, finding a compromise can help to preserve our social relationships. Another reason we make the false compromise fallacy is the lack of information. Sometimes determining who's right is much more complicated, perhaps because we don't know the topic well enough, and so a compromise seems like the safest choice. Imagine you have a car you want to sell. The guy at the car dealer evaluates your car at $10,000, but then a person responding to your ad offers you $100 and nothing more. Of course, it's ridiculously low, but unless you are a car expert, you have no way to evaluate the offer, and you might be tempted to fall for the false compromise fallacy, settling for $1,000 for a car that might be worth $10,000. If we want to avoid this fallacy, we need to analyze the options we are presented with. Does one of the options make much more sense than the other? Sometimes it's immediately evident that one option is more sound, while the other seems weird. In that case, it will be sensible to choose the one that seems more reliable, no matter how tempting it is to try and reach a compromise. Are both options equally valid? If both options seem valid, we may want to find out whether they are actually conflicting. We might discover that they actually aren't, and we can choose both. For example, a country might find both public and private schools are equally valid for different reasons, and so degrees from both are given legitimacy. In that case, there will be no need to choose between one or the other. Are both options false? As a general rule, it's worth keeping in mind that just because both propositions sound extreme, it doesn't mean they're both false. Looking for a compromise in this case might still be a mistake. For example, imagine someone tells you that the sky above Mars is red, while someone else tells you that it's false, because the sky above Mars is yellow. As much as these claims sound absurd to us here on Earth, under a blue sky, there's no need to find a middle ground between the two and say that the sky above Mars is orange. Seen from Mars, the sky is actually red. As a last piece of advice, be careful not to make the opposite mistake. to refuse a compromise at all costs. It is true that truth isn't always in the middle, but sometimes a compromise is actually the better option. If you enjoyed this video, hit like, subscribe to the School of Thinking channel, and let us know in the comments which errors in reasoning would you like us to explain in the future. See you next time!